like we talked about leadership roles. How do we lead, or how do we become leaders in saving the world? How do each of us, achieve our goals, achieve our desires without being too grandiose or too unrealistic or too crazy, too cult-like.
Or like
Um,
what in general a leader should be.
yeah, what in general is a good leader for our particular purposes of saving the world? You can say there's different leaders for different things, for different purposes, whether it's a good CEO or a good religious leader or a good, um, you know, whatever, business leader or independent, business owner. All those things require different skill sets, but we want to focus on specific leaders, not even politicians so much as specific leaders in saving the world specifically. What type of leaders are we looking for, and what type of leaders are we personally trying to become, in order to maximize benefit to everybody, maximize the I guess the effectiveness of what we're trying to do. So that being said, I'll just jump the question out, or throw the question out there. What do you think are the key qualities? We can maybe use those 48 laws of power if we want to dig into each, or some of them at all, as far as pros or cons for each one of these
I th-
laws that
I think
Robert
yeah.
Greene talks about in his book.
I think what would be best is like I can start with something general, but then like at one point we could switch to like it could be like reading the rules, and then I could be like
Yeah.
reacting to them. I think that could be a good model for like how to do that, and then we can like
Yes, I like
discuss
that.
the points. In general, I would say I actually started writing an article on my blog lately that I'm just about to finish the section about this. Actually, I sort of led to it naturally without any connection to the plan that we like sort of wanted to talk about it. It
Yeah.
just was something I was thinking about. Derived actually from the simulation hypothesis. Like, if this is a simulation, you're living in a simulation, what impact it has on leadership in a way that you can maybe observe in reality actually is the case, which is, I guess, a bit unfortunate. So I would start with what's the wrong model instead of in contrast. Then I could like just flip it around. You could say that's what I think is actually what you need. So, like, my general argument that I'm about to make in that article is that if in a simulation, if it's supposed to be meaningful and like a learning experience, then it has some sort of implications that are not great for like trying to save the world. Because if the world is about learning, and like learning has a component of suffering, it's like you're supposed to, if you're doing something wrong, there has to be a negative feedback so that you realize that it's a wrong thing to do. So there could be implications like in such a world is not really a world about to be saved, because
Right.
that would stop the learning or teaching process. So there are some
That
sort
makes
of
sense.
implications, like for example, when you have sayings that seem to have some validity, like only the good die young. Like, why would you have a world where a good person is more likely to die younger? It would be like, yeah, the person has already learned the lesson, and like so they need to move on type thing. It'll be like implication, like, because of course my approach always is like, okay, if I was creating a simulation, then what
Okay.
inevitable like effects it would have in terms of design of the simulation. So with leadership, it's like I think I've headlined the section of the article, government of the worst, by the worst, for the worst. And the idea is that in such a situation, such a scenario, such a world, you have a higher likelihood of the leaders being bad leaders, or bad people, because they are put in extreme learning opportunities, in that they are given power that is corrupting them, or very, very easy to corrupt a person. So they're sort of being tested in that sense.
Okay.
Or it's more likely that people who have more power would be people who have more things to learn than the people who have less. So it's like a bunch of reasons for that. So I think if you sort of ignore for the moment the whole like simulation hypothesis implications, you definitely seem to have an element of that in observable reality, where it
Right.
often seems, and people often share this sentiment, that leaders, especially political leaders, are ultimately bad people who have bad motives and who are not doing a great job and are only in it for themselves, or they're like small in group, and that a lot of politics is about that. And most people, when they think about leadership, they think about political leaders.
Right.
So what I think is bad in a leader is exactly that the leader is very just in it for themselves, like doesn't actually have any intention to serve other people, but they are
Right.
pursuing greater levels of power or wealth or success or fame or whatever it might be. Whereas
Right.
what I think is actually the right kind of leader is more of like a person you could actually call elite, meaning not like elite in that they have a privileged status, but elite in that they have high levels of ability, integrity, and willingness to help people. So it's
Right.
like this is this sad fact that in many political systems they don't seem to be geared toward getting the actual elite people to become the privileged elite people who have the power to make the decisions.
Okay. Well, very, very cool. So I have a couple of counter arguments or just ideas to throw out there for the whole. We started with the simulation hypothesis. So I would counter with any kind of simulation hypothesis saying we're living in a simulation. If I were the director of that simulation, the purpose or probably the main purpose that I'd be looking for in that simulation is people who are actually trying to save it or make the simulation better. So if you think of Ender's Game a little bit, where basically all these kids are running these battle simulations, but of course they think it's a simulation, but it's actually real. They're actually fighting against the aliens in real. But the whole thing of thinking it was a simulation was just a matter of getting them to be comfortable and not to stress out about their decisions, right? So I would think that it would be very similar, that even if it was a simulation, even if we knew it was a simulation, we still treat it kind of like it's not. Because we're being tested on how well we would do if it wasn't a simulation. Right? So it's like whether it's a simulation or not, it really doesn't matter because the powers that be that would be running it would be testing us as if it wasn't.
Yeah, that's there are different versions of scenarios. This would be like a kind of simulation that you could have that many spiritually inclined people believe this is. That's like a learning experience for like us who are immersed into the world. Like even then, it's related to actually like Christian theologies where they do think of this world as like a fallen world or like a world created by the demiurge, or have this like this as a whole like school of thought. Is like one possibility. I do agree with you that even if it's a testing kind of simulation, it could be different, like for a different purpose. Yeah. But then the argument that I was making in the article at different point was that it would still explain why like people would die younger, because then you determine that they have the good stuff, and so you need them to solve the real problems in the real world. Yeah. So that's like the other view of why that would work. But it has different implications for leadership. That's true.
Yeah, and we have that kind of belief in the Mormon faith. We believe that anyone who dies before the age of accountability, the age of 8, is automatically saved. Which, you know, I've had some challenges understanding that really because of the number of people who are you know, die before the age of 8, especially the babies. And you think there's that many souls or that many spirits, you know, billions and billions, hundreds of billions maybe, that die before the age of 8 that would be automatically, you know, saved without really being tested, which kind of seems to me like a bit of a numbers game, unless you think of them as being reincarnated, maybe. But it just seems like so many more people get a kind of a free pass versus actually going through the testing. It almost seems to invalidate, you know, the reason for the testing. If you know, 50% or more don't even need to be tested at all because they're so good in the pre-existence or another form of existence, they don't need to be tested here.
There's like a number of solutions to that. It could be like that. It's not necessarily about testing every single one. So they could be like souls who have already been tested previously. So it's usually the solution is kind of a reincarnation-based solution, or in computer game talk, respawning. That is like you can't like sort of determine what it is about from any individual example. It's about the whole system as a whole.
Yeah. So what I think about it anyway, so all these things being said, they kind of make sense, and it's really about your purpose, your goal as a leader, what you want to accomplish, and depending on no matter how you look at it, I think the goal should be, you know, the best goal that we can make of from the world as we see it, as we know it, as best as possible to make that world better, you know, for more people, more freedom, more ability to choose, more ability to live longer lives, healthier lives, you know, more education, more all these things that we generally consider as good for us individually and good for society in general. So I think that should always be the main goal, no matter how you look at it, because they're all kind of connected to that being, you know, the purpose of life is to have joy. The purpose of life is to progress, learn, and you know, grow. So all those good things essentially lead to more growth for more people and more opportunities for more people. So I think that kind of, it always comes back to that core purpose of, you know, giving more opportunities, more joy, more life to as many people as possible.
No, sure, because even in a scenario where it's about growth and learning primarily, even if it somehow was like an emergent law of the universe or something,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
really necessarily a created situation. Even in those
Yeah.
cases, what's important about that is that you still need the world to not be doomed completely. Like
Yes.
there has to
Exactly.
be a balance between the forces, or there has to always be a way to strive towards something better, and like there's to be reasons for hope, and there has to be so it never should be just all like terrible all around, because that's a terminal state
Yeah.
for that whole, let's say, simulation slash world slash existence society, whatever. So that's why, like, of course, that it, whatever the underlying like reason or mechanics or whatever are, like, yes, there always have to be a way to improve. There has to be ability to make things better. It's just that there are some like reasons why there will probably always be pressures. It's like it's very
Mm.
likely that you can't achieve in a reality like this one based on observation of how various dynamics work. It's very hard to imagine that you could have like a definite like solution and final end state, like total heaven with no issues, challenges, pressures, or anything. It just
Yes.
seems like, yeah, you can
Yes.
keep like ascending as long as you want and encountering new pressures. So that
Yeah.
you can like
Even
continuously like grow forever is like seems more
yeah,
like what this is
exactly.
geared toward.
Yeah, even if we were all to become essentially gods, we would still continue to grow as gods by creating more worlds or more simulations or more, different kinds. There's that unlimited number of potential universes out there we could build and test and have joy with and have fun with, creating infinite amounts of life and infinite amounts of experiences. So I don't think there's ever an end to learning and growth, even from a godlike level. Even if you believe God is all powerful and omnipotent, from our perspective, I still believe that God must have something to do, must
Yeah,
have more to learn, or
like
he wouldn't be bothering with it.
that's the question. Like, what does God do to grow?
Yes. And that's, again, we can definitely dig in on some of that when we think about what is a leader, what does a godlike leader do, and we would, do our best to emulate that.